All right, and we are live. Welcome everybody to the Marlins trade deadline reaction stream. I know that's what this is titled, but this is really going to be more of a general MLB show as deals do roll in. My name is Eric Wiedeke. You can follow me on X/Twitter at Eric Wiedeke. Joining me today is Austin. You can follow him at AustinD1316. Austin, it has been a pretty busy Thursday. And a lot of deals have gone down, but I think at least among people in South Florida, the biggest deals are the ones that have not gone down. Just talk to me a little bit about how you feel things have happened so far this deadline and how you think the rest of these 40 minutes are going to play out.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of teams forcing their hand trying to go towards their World Series and make that push. But I also think while there's a heavy market for a lot of these guys, particularly in some cases in favor for the Marlins and the guys that they have, I think the Marlins are really holding true to their offers for their guys. You got to remember that these specifically Cabrera and Sandy are under team control for the near future. So they are going to be standing firm on their offers. They're not going to take anything less because at the end of the day, these are still two high-level starters that can contribute on any team, and any team would be blessed to have them in their rotation, especially for a playoff game. So I think at least one of them goes. I think most realistic, it may not be getting talked about a lot just because he's not got as much spotlight, but Cal Quantrill, he is the expiring contract. It makes the most sense. It's easiest to move him. And like we'll talk about here in a second, we just seen the Marlins acquire Ryan Gusto from the Astros. So I'll let you start talking about what we just saw, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really busy day to this point. A lot of teams have been super aggressive. You look at what the Padres are doing out in San Diego. You look at what the Astros have done this afternoon. So there's been a ton of movement, and I think that there's going to continue to be that level of movement. We do have our first kind of comment from Anthony on the YouTube side asking about, are the Marlins asking for way too much for Sandy or Edward, and that's why we could, they can't be traded, or is it possible they're waiting on the offseason? Personally, I wouldn't wait on the offseason with either guy at this point. If your mind is made up, whichever one your mind is made up to deal, I would only deal one of the two, and I would keep the other. But depending on which one you want to deal, whether that's Sandy or that's Edward, I would do it right now, because I think you look at what the asking price of the market is, and the market has set the price high at this point. So, I understand where that kind of sentiment is coming from, that, they haven't done anything yet. Those guys haven't been moved. Maybe the asking price is too high. But I think you look at the rest of the starting pitcher market and the freeze that's been there. Joe Ryan hasn't been moved. Dylan Cease hasn't been moved. Mitch Keller's probably not going to get moved. Seth Lugo was thought to be on the market. He's no longer on the market. And you just kind of look at it, and I think it's just right now, that's what the price of a starting pitcher is on the trade market. And I think the Marlins are smart to play it to the last minute, because it's kind of like a game of musical chairs. No one wants to, be caught standing when the music stops. And I think the Marlins are aware of that. They probably have 3 or 4 offers standing right now. And they're just kind of waiting to see if anyone's going to up their offer. But I do think come 6 p.m., the Marlins will have dealt 1 or maybe even 2 starters out of their rotation. You do mention like what you mentioned with adding a guy like Gusto. I think he's going to come in and be part of the rotation right away, and I don't think you can make that happen without moving a starter or 2. So, and there goes Merrill Kelly to the Rangers.
Yep, just like that.
I think that's the first big move. Oh, Dylan Cease also just went to the Astros. Oh my God. Okay. All right. So we had the floodgates
back to back.
Back to back. All right. So just throw everything out I said out there. But it'll be interesting to see what those returns end up looking like. I do think now, though, the Yankees were, at least monitoring those other two guys. They're still looking for starting pitching help. I think they're still going to be in on Sandy. I think the Mets are a team that's still going to be in on Sandy. Certainly the Padres. I don't know. I just expect AJ Preller to somehow get himself into the room on that. But the deals are coming in fast and furious. Really trying to see what these returns look like. And it'll give, yeah. Rangers get Kelly, and wow, okay. Austin, you tell me what we're looking at here, because I'm trying to figure out what the returns are right now. I haven't seen anything to this point, but I think that these returns are actually going to be really telling as to what the price of starting pitching looks like on the market.
Yeah, no, I think these are two that'll tell the fans, at least, just exactly what the Marlins could get, and ultimately would be looking for in regards to Sandy and Edward Cabrera. I believe, like I said, these are the two best arms other than Joe Ryan on the market. And the starting pitcher front, we have Sandy finding his groove again. And I think just ultimately, like I said at the top, like it's super important for the Marlins to get what they are looking for. They cannot, sell themselves short on the talent that is in between these two guys. So if they're going to get anything in return, it's got to be a top MLB prospect, somebody who's going to be ready within the next 2 years to help contribute, somebody that they could see helping their future. And as I wrote about in the trade deadline outlook that I wrote yesterday, if they really nail these trades, they can really start to see a World Series window, as crazy as it is to say, start to open. I mean, they have a lot of young talent that's all starting to blend at the right time, and they have guys that you can kind of do, like a soft sell. So, like I said, I would like to see. It's taken a while today for any return to show up on these moves, longer than normal, it seems. But as we get this, we shall see. So, but I guess we'll go here before we do that. What would you grade the first trade for the Marlins we've seen today with Jesus Sanchez? How do you see that trade?
So I tend to give, I think it's a decent return on value for a guy in Sanchez who we can all acknowledge has a lot of potential, but hasn't quite lived up to it in Miami to this point. You get a couple of prospects out of the Padre or out of the Astro system that are top 30 guys, and then I think a guy in Gusto who's pretty interesting. The FIP is better than the ERA, which is a positive thing, and going to pitch in Lone Depot Park, I think can only serve to help him. And at this point, with the Marlins and their pitching development and their scouting, if they're acquiring a guy at that spot with what they found in recent years, whether it's Junk or Henriquez or Bender or, guys that have just kind of slipped through the cracks, I tend to just kind of trust them on that. And, Gusto, a guy that's coming in with at least some modest prospect pedigree in the last couple of years for the Astros, I think it's a decent deal overall. I'd give it probably a B to B plus.
And I think that's a fair grade. I was right at the C plus to B grade. Like I said, I like that they get a major league arm back. I'm not the biggest fan of his, but I will say Valencia and Jaworski both have potential to kind of work their way through the Marlins system. Valencia has 50 stolen bases down in the minors this season, and Jaworski has kind of been average, but he's got good bat to ball skills. Not too much of a power grade there with him. But I kind of stuck at the C plus grade. I like that they got an MLB ready guy, and then obviously you can never complain about building up your farm system. So
no, and listen, I've always said, and I still contend, like, Jesus Sanchez to me is just the poster child of a guy that is going to all of a sudden in another uniform just start living up to his potential. And I wouldn't be shocked if through August and September, he hits like 15 homers and has a 850 900 OPS. That's not outside the realm of possibilities whatsoever, for Sanchez. And another move just came in, Willie Castro to the Cubs. So the Cubs get a utility man, add another bat to their lineup. It'll be interesting to see what their prospect capital looks like in that deal, because we've kind of heard some interesting, conflicting things as to how much they're willing to go in on a starter. In terms of, are they willing to give up a top prospect to get a Sandy or an Edward Cabrera or a Mackenzie Gore? And it doesn't seem like that's like that is the case. So it's gonna be interesting to see over the course of this last 30 minutes, because now the deals are just kind of coming in fast and furious. I see the Angels added Oswald Peraza from the Yankees. So just, right now it's a lot to keep up with. But specifically just focusing on the Cubs right now, when it comes to Willie Castro having a really strong season for Minnesota this year, and it's just been like a major sell-off in Minnesota. I don't think anybody could have expected that. Is this the kind of move that prohibits the Cubs from getting in on a top-line starting pitcher?
In my opinion, I don't think it would. It'll probably be some mid-tier to bottom of the line prospects, in my opinion. Maybe one major league ready guy back just to keep the Twins sort of competitive and try and keep Byron Buxton happy, which we'll see how that plays out with this fire sale that's going on. Byron Buxton is seemingly committed to being a Twin for life, and there would have been a crazy market for a player like him. But we will see. Castro is, a super utility guy. I mean, he plays pretty much everywhere on the field. He's right about average in OPS and stuff, but he's going to be a guy that they're going to get, trade away middle of the line prospects for. I think with the Cubs system that they have, there's guys in that farm, and they've shown also the ability to develop, the younger guys. They absolutely fleeced the Mets with Pete Crow Armstrong. They've done good in the international signing pool market. So they have done a good job of building this team in many different types of ways. But I think no matter what, if they really think that they can go forward with this team, like I talked about earlier with Justin Steele out, with some of the other guys starting to struggle, they desperately need an arm. And I think that even if it takes a little more, they are the team that will ultimately fold and offer a little more than they were originally wanting to. So,
yeah, speaking of kind of really interesting developments here in the last half hour, I did just see it scrolled across my feed here that the Red Sox are making a last minute push now for Joe Ryan. Which makes a ton of sense given the way things have played out in Minnesota to this point. And listen, if Minnesota's just giving guys away at this point, the Marlins aren't buying, but buy low on Royce Lewis wouldn't look so bad. I'm just saying,
yeah.
But Red Sox, another team that's been linked to this top flight starting pitching, and it would seemingly be another trade partner kind of off the board with the Marlins. It does feel like this deadline is kind of pushing the Marlins and the Yankees closer together on a starting pitching deal at this point.
They just sent, Talking Baseball posted it, so we'll see when Heyman or one of them confirm, but they are saying that in return for O'Hearn and Laureano, the Orioles are getting the Padres' number 4 prospect, left-handed pitcher Boston Bateman, their 6th prospect, infielder Cobb Hightower, their 12th prospect, Tyson Neighbors, and then their 29th prospect, Victor Figueroa, along with Brandon Butterworth and right-handed pitcher Tanner Smith. So that's a lot.
Yeah. AJ Preller. I mean, he's certainly not afraid to go all in. And the Padres, to their credit, they do a really good job of kind of refilling their system because it feels like they do this every year, where they're just tearing it down.
Exactly, and especially with the rumors around Cease, I mean they should be able to get, barring they actually do move him, they would be able to get a solid return back for him just to quickly replenish what's going on down there. So we shall see.
I mean, it also wouldn't shock me because I mean there's also been those whispers that they might kind of turn around and at least use some of what they get for Cease to end up flipping it for a guy like a Sandy, which I mean sounds like something that doesn't necessarily always happen in baseball, but AJ Preller is just a different kind of GM than I think a lot of people are used to seeing, especially when it comes to this time at the deadline. It's very few do it like him. But I do want to get into now the NL East and some of what the other teams are doing. It feels like the Mets and the Phillies are just trying to match each other move for move at this point. The Phillies go out and they go get Juan Duran, and then they get Harrison Bader, and then the Mets decide, okay, well, we're gonna get Tyler Rogers. And we're going to go get Cedric Mullins. And I mean, it's quite an arms race developing in the National League East at this point between bullpen additions, outfield additions. Who do you think is better positioned to make a run in August, September here in the NL East?
That's a very good question. I like what the Mets have going. I know that could be maybe the hot take as of right now. I know the Padres just kind of manhandled them this past weekend, but I mean the Mets lineup is very good, as is the Phillies. Both teams really have things going on. But what shocks me about the Mets is their ability to pitch with the guys that they have on the rotation. I mean, David Peterson, he's having an insane year. He's been great. They're getting solid production out of Clay Holmes. Kodai Senga, he's been as advertised. I mean, his ERA, I think, is sitting right at 2, if not even below it. Adding Tyler Rogers, the little submarine lefty, perfect, in those spots where it's like we need a guy to get an out, lefty-lefty matchup. He'll extend a little bit. Then they added Hesley as well. That was a good move yesterday. So the back at the end of that bullpen, I mean, you got Edwin Diaz, who's lights out. He can shut any game down. He steps on the mound, you think it's game over. Then you add Hesley. I mean, he can shut it down on days that Diaz is out. He can set it up in the 8th. Both will go very well. They're getting good production out of Reed Garrett in the bullpen. And then obviously Soto, I mean, he's starting to find his stride. Lindor's playing a little lower than he normally does. And I think they're going to be the get hot at the right time kind of team this year. And I think the Cedric Mullins move is not – it's kind of like a move just to have a little more depth. He's an upgrade from Tyrone Taylor, which goes without saying. But it's somebody that can at least provide a little spark here and there. They're going to try and get whatever little bit is left out of him. Obviously, we've seen what he can do before, but anything's better than Tyrone Taylor. So I like what the Mets are doing.
Yeah, I mean, both teams kind of going all in, and honestly, oh wow, it's one of those things where I look at the Mets and I look at the Phillies, and just given what was given up on both sides, I think the Phillies gave up a significant package for a guy like Juan Duran. And don't get me wrong, I think he's going to be a great piece at the back end of their bullpen. But this is a team that signed David Robertson like a week ago. Not that David Robertson can't be, still a helpful piece in the pen, but man, adding a guy that hasn't pitched this year, is 40 years old, in the middle of a playoff race. I think that there's still more work that they need to do in the bullpen, even beyond Duran. And then the Mets, like you mentioned, they've just got a lot of depth in their starting rotation. The Juan Soto addition, I don't think it's been said enough how much of an impact that's had on a guy like Pete Alonso. When you look at the year Pete Alonso had last year and then compared it to what he's done so far this year. And then that's not even to mention, if Mark Vientos gets going there, and he's just now starting to come back from injury, if he gets going in New York as well in that lineup, I tend to agree with you that I think that they're probably positioned a little bit better. And the Phillies, I mean, their core to me is getting to the point where, they're starting to age out just a little bit. Wheeler will tell you every time he opens his mouth when he plans to retire. Bryce Harper's getting up there. Kyle Schwarber's getting up there. JT Realmuto's starting to get up there. So I just think this Mets team is probably better set up, over the course of a long season to kind of, take control of the National League East.
Yeah, and I also forgot to give Sean Manaea his flowers too. He's been the depth, like you said, the depth on that rotation is crazy.
Boy, and now I'm seeing that it is likely that Joe Ryan does get moved for the Red Sox or for the Twins. That's, my goodness.
That's a lot. They're
So question. Gut feeling right now, who gets moved first, Joe Ryan or Sandy Alcantara?
I'm gonna say Joe Ryan. I think Sandy's gonna be like if he does get moved, it's gonna be the one that creeps in at like 6:02 that we hear about a little late. So I really think now both of them, like the offers that they're gonna get, I mean, we shall see. There's a reason they haven't been moved yet. So that's all I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, it's you're getting down to the wire here. We're under 20 minutes away. Joe Ryan's yet to be dealt. Sandy's yet to be dealt. I would imagine that once Joe Ryan is gone, one of the Marlins starters is going to see the interest go through the roof.
Yeah,
just
and
whether
I'm looking at Ryan's contract, and it's just a 1 year, $3 million with 2 arbitration years. So his return will probably be a little less than what would be expected per se, but it's going to be huge. It's going to be.
Yeah, because you're going to want to. Any team that acquires him would probably want to buy out those arbitration years. Yeah. I mean, the Cubs, the Astros, and the Yankees are kind of the teams that, I guess, the cease to the Astros thing. That might have been a little premature. I know I got that kind of from the YouTube comments, but I haven't seen anything confirming that yet. So it seems like it's cease. So it seems like the Astros, Yankees, and Cubs are still kind of the teams that were looking to add starting pitching coming into this thing that have yet to do so at this point. See the Royals acquire Bailey Falter from the Pirates. Royals have just made the most random trades today. They traded Freddie Fermin to the Padres, and then they acquire Bailey Falter. I mean, I guess it's a lukewarm approach,
Yeah, just trying to get value out of guys that other teams may not see as much in, I guess.
Yeah, so it's the Diamondbacks get the Rangers' number 5 prospect in Cone Drake, their number 9 prospect in left-handed pitcher Mitch Bratt, and number 13 pitcher or number 13 prospect and right-handed pitcher David Hageman. So 3 of the Rangers' top 15 prospects go to Arizona for Merrill Kelly. And I think that that's probably a pretty good barometer of what you would expect for Sandy. And, well, we have it from Craig Mish. The Miami Marlins will not be trading Sandy Alcantara today. He'll once again be the ace down the stretch as the Marlins keep pushing this season and developing for the future. So Sandy is staying put.
And I don't have a problem with that at all. I really don't. I think a pitcher of his caliber, I mean, the control that they have with his contract, I think it would have been nice to see a good return from them. But the way things are going, whatever Peter Bendix does, I don't really think you can really argue with. I mean, last year at this time, the Marlins were 17 games back of the wild card. Today, they're 7 games back. They're getting production out of, like we stated at the top of the show, out of guys that teams didn't see elsewhere. I mean, most notably Kyle Stowers. I mean, he's batting above 300. His OPS is top 10 in the league, 20 plus homers. I mean, that's been insane. They got a lot of young prospects in the pitching department as well. And who knows? Maybe, just maybe, this will be the year that they bring in, a good free agent signing. There's guys here that can help win, and there's a solid market for power bats in the outfield, and obviously a shortstop would be I know many people may not like that, but they just drafted one for a reason in Arquette. So
I don't think they drafted him to play shortstop, but I'll leave that.
He's going to play third. He's going to play third.
He is going to play third. Yeah.
But they know what they're looking for. So
yeah, no, certainly. So that's what's interesting to me there. And firstly, I do just want to address it. I think it's a good thing that you're not dealing Sandy at the at the lowest value he's probably going to have over the next year or two, regardless. Because I mean, let's be honest, if teams did step up and offer the Marlins the type of package that they were looking for Sandy, we wouldn't be getting that news. He would be somewhere else, because we know how this team operates. And if there was a deal out there that they felt was good value, they would have pulled the trigger. Now, what I find interesting there is no mention of Edward Cabrera. And he's the guy that I think right now has probably the most value of any starter for the Marlins. And it would be interesting to see if there's any team that is willing to go kind of all in on him. Although, again, I wonder, with his track record of kind of, of inconsistency, he's been great since May in the last 13, 14, 15 starts he's made. But is that really enough of a track record for a team to say, yeah, we're willing to give you, 2 of our top 5 prospects for this guy? What did you see? What happened? Something
so random, it makes sense with who's coming back for the Dodgers. But the Red Sox are acquiring right-hander Dustin May from the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Oh, wow.
Which I don't think anybody in the entire world would have seen coming.
Yeah, no, I don't think so at all.
I think that's an interesting pivot away from other arms. I will say that.
No, absolutely. And that tells me that I think the Joe Ryan thing probably isn't happening for Boston at this point, which, again, now it almost feels like you have more pitching available than you have suitors at this point, because I think that the Red Sox are out, the Rangers are out, the Astros might still be in. The Yankees are still in. The Cubs are still in, but you're still looking at Joe Ryan. You're still looking at Edward Cabrera. You're still looking at Dylan Cease. And, we're 10 minutes to the deadline here, and it does feel like, maybe maybe Jesus Sanchez was kind of it for the Marlins. Maybe they did overplay their hand in terms of what they were asking for some of these guys, and thinking that the market, at some point, I guess the market gets too hot and teams just decide, you know what, we'd rather hold on what we have. Now, granted, I think the Marlins made the right call with Sandy, and we'll see if anything does go down here in this last 10 minutes or so. But I do just want to talk a little bit about, regardless of any moves that happen at this point, you did bring up an interesting point here about what they have going into 2026. And if you are confident that Sandy's going to have a bounce back in the second half, and continue pitching well and build off these last two starts, and you are confident that Edward Cabrera is going to be a valuable piece in your rotation going forward, and you've got Ryan Weathers coming back, you've been pleased with Jansen Junk, Cal Quantrill's been great of late, and then you've got guys like Robbie Snelling at AAA kind of making a push for the call. It is a very good spot to be in objectively. So from that perspective, there's not trades that they have to make. I think there's trades that they may want to make to kind of make room for certain other corresponding moves. But, I do think it's probably a good thing that they're not willing to just make a move and kind of come down on their demands here as we do get close to the deadline. Oh, there's more stuff going on.
The Rays trade Caballero. I really like him. Volpe's going to lose. Volpe might. Wow. For those who don't watch the Rays, Jose Caballero is a very freakishly fast shortstop. He leads the Rays in stolen bases and can also play the outfield. I talked about it earlier today, not on here, but how the Yankees need some shortstop insurance the way Anthony Volpe's been playing. And they talked about it on MLB Network earlier, how he may be developing a certain thing that you don't talk about defensively. And I tend to agree. I really don't think Anthony Volpe is as good as the story wishes he was, but that's a solid move for the Yankees. Gives them a little bit of insurance and an interesting move by the Rays, but they're another team that kind of has to start doing some things to, as good as the young prospects they have and as good as a farm system they always have, the one thing they lack is talent in the pitching department. So I'm expecting their return to be
Everson Pereira and a player to be named later. That's what I'm saying. That's from one of the Yankees
already,
guys.
Outfielder Everson Pereira. Dang. So the Yankees just got him for free?
I don't know, man. Pereira still got some pretty good prospect pedigree. Yeah, Pereira, I mean, he hasn't done anything in the majors, but he's only got 93 career at-bats. But, I mean, you're looking at a guy with an 857 career OPS in the minors.
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
Oh, man. Phil Matone to the Rangers, so another relief arm is off the market. Now, the one thing that does disappoint me, and I hesitate to use the word disappoint because it's like, oh, wow, we're going to keep all these good relievers. What are we going to do with a bullpen full of good arms? But I do tend to be kind of in the camp of, relievers just go for so much value at the deadline that you can get more out of some of these guys dealing them than you can keeping them around. And there's so much variability year to year with some of these guys that a guy might be pitching to like a 180 ERA one year, and then the next year he's just He's got like a 5 ERA, and he's going back and forth between AAA and the majors. You just never know when those things are going to happen when it comes to relievers. So I am a little, if nothing happens, I am a little disappointed that some of the relievers are still around, just considering what it looks like you may have been able to get. For guys like Bender, for guys like Fauché, Henriquez, especially when you consider, Adrian Hauser just went to the Rays. That's a nice ad.
They needed a starter really bad. Really bad. They've been dealing with a
Adrian
lot of
Hauser
trouble.
has been really good.
Mm-hmm. See, they're in that little. They're in the make the big league team better mode, which is what I've been saying that they need to do. They just said that Caballero was giving out hugs in the dugouts to everybody because the Rays are playing right now in New York, and we've seen two guys traded from that game right now. Oswaldo Cabrera to the Angels, and now Caballero to right across the dugout. So I guess he'll just stay there. Second time we've seen that happen this week, by the way. Sir Anthony Dominguez was traded in between the doubleheader between the Blue Jays and Orioles, and now we have Caballero traded in the middle of the game. So
yeah, it does still, and I know we're 4 minutes away, so there's really only so much that can happen at this point. But it does still kind of intrigue me that the Marlins, well, I guess they didn't come out and say, but it's been reported that they're not moving Sandy. And whoever the source is within the organization telling them that they're not moving Sandy, I mean, it kind of tells you that there may still be ongoing conversations with a guy like Cabrera at this point. And it would make sense. I mean, he's one of the best starting pitching options remaining on the block here. But we do have some comments coming in, and I think that this is going to be, kind of be the sentiment generally from a lot of fans, because it was hyped up to be a deadline where there was going to be a lot of selling done, and I'll just address a couple of these real quick here. I wouldn't say it's a complete failure if you can't trade either Sandy or Edward. I was of the impression that they probably should move one of those guys while they can and get a big deal for them. But, I think right now you'd be dealing Sandy at his lowest value. And I think that they're a little sensitive to doing things like that, particularly with starting pitchers. And I know that his value isn't as high and I know that he struggled, but Jesus Luzardo, I think, has been a lot better than his counting stats look so far this season. I think that, they're still kind of smarting from dealing him for Starlin Caba, and who probably is not one of, I mean, at least to me, wouldn't be considered a really high-end prospect. And so I don't think you want to repeat that mistake again specifically when it comes to Sandy. I just think you'd be dealing him close to the lowest end of his value. I think that it's likely that he will get back to, maybe not 2022 form, but maybe he's a guy that pitches to, maybe he's more of a 2 or 3 starter. And if he's a really good 2 or 3 starter at the value that he's at right now with his contract at 16 to 20 million, I think that that's probably about in line with what you can expect. So I wouldn't, and I do think that maybe teams are a little bit more gun shy when it comes to prospects now than they ever have been, because we just know more now than we ever have regarding, team building and things of that nature. And we've seen so many of these deals. I mean, you look back on Juan Soto to the Padres, and at the time it's, a team can't give up enough for Juan Soto. And I know that the Nationals are in a bad spot, but we can all look back, and the Padres don't have Soto, and they also don't have James Wood, Mackenzie Gore, or CJ Abrams to show for it. So I think teams are a little bit more gun shy when it comes to going all in on prospect deals. now than they ever have been. And I do think that the Marlins were sticking to a very high asking price.
And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I think we keep repeating it, but there's not much else to talk about until anything else happens. As Heyman, John Heyman says the Tigers are working hard for a starting pitcher, so it'll be interesting to see if they can get something done as the final things roll out, because it is now officially 6 p.m. So the trade deadline is here, and as we always know, news will trickle out. But like we talked about, I mean, keeping Sandy, Cy Young potential.
Alden Gonzalez of ESPN just reported, barring something unforeseen, Marlins are expected to hold on to both Sandy and Edward Cabrera. And then kind of at the deadline here, Camilo Doval to the Yankees. That's really significant.
Yeah, that's a good move. I was interested to see what the Giants would do, because ever since the Devers trade, they've been pretty terrible, in all honesty. The Yankees needed another bullpen arm.
Yep. Yeah, the relievers and Quantrill is kind of, I think, if there's something that you're looking at in terms of, I really wish the Marlins would have done something to move some of these guys. It's probably the bullpen and Cal Quantrill. Although maybe Cal Quantrill is the guy that the Tigers are working hard for, because it does seem like the Tigers have been kind of making half measures at this deadline. They really, for a team that's as in the mix as they are, they've been kind of.
There we go. Charlie Morton to the Tigers. That's right. That's who they chose. Oh, wow. Tampa Bay Rays are acquiring right-handed reliever Griffin Jacks.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my. Okay.
Goodness. All right, well, we are not done yet, it would seem.
Yeah, don't forget, baseball, you'll see trades trickle out till about like 6:30, which is part of the reason that was
Barry
our
Jackson,
plan.
Marlins make only the Sanchez trade today, nothing more.
I will say, if you want to be disappointed about it, like you just talked about, not trading Edward, not trading Sandy, I don't think that's worth being disappointed over. Not moving Bender, not moving Cal. I mean, it's an expiring contract.
Yeah, he's not going to be.
We talk about it in basketball all the time with the Heat. I'm sure there's some Heat fans watching right now. You got to get something in return for the assets. There was perfect opportunity to do it, especially if Charlie Morton's getting traded. Quantrill's been arguably better than Morton has been this year. Is younger, could stay with the team if they wanted to. I think you could have at least got something of substance worth. And then as we approach the end of the season, been able to bring up one of the younger guys to give them a shot, maybe a little earlier than you might have wanted to, but at least, see what they have. So
we do have one more question coming in here. Marlins don't value building actual capable catching depth. Traded best defensive catcher in Fortes, and neither Ramirez or Hicks are even solid defensive catchers. I mean, listen, I tend to agree when it comes to like defensively, especially because it seems like they're probably not going to call up a guy like Joe Mack here for August and September, even though, I mean, personally, I would, because of the fact that I don't think Agustin Ramirez is even, like, I think he's just at a point where I don't even see a foundation. I don't think it's worth going through that development process, especially if you're making the decision that you're going to try to stay in the wild card race, which it seems like they've done. So I just, from my perspective, I don't really see the value in, okay, well, we're going to try to win games, but we're also going to try to develop this guy defensively at arguably the most important defensive position, who is just a net negative at that spot right now. And
both of them.
Yeah, both of them. So I mean, in my perfect world, I think Wagaman goes, you DFA him, Matt comes up, Marcy comes up, and then you ride it out with the group that you have currently. That's probably where I would end up going with it. And Mac would be right now. He would be the best defensive catcher on the Marlins right now, no question. So I do think that they have an idea that they have something better defensively coming down the pipeline. I'm just apprehensive as to whether or not we'll actually see it in 2025 versus in 2026.
I will say, I think part of the reason, and obviously there was still plenty of moves, especially in the bullpen, as we talked about, because I mean that's what everybody always goes crazy for every deadline, which I very surprised that Kenley Jansen was not moved. But the Angels are in that weird spot at that 4 or 5 game mark away, and I think with the six teams making the playoffs with 3 wild cards, teams really do believe that they're in it. And baseball is just such an interesting sport compared to others where, I mean, look at Mickey Moniak in Colorado. Like, it's just like all it takes is a change of scenery. All it takes is a guy to get hot at the right time, or a team to get hot at the right time. We've seen plenty of stories about, them getting behind one player, or like the rally cricket that gets in the thing. Or a few years ago back, we saw the stuffed animal, the monkey. I forget who did it, that they had in the dugout, and the team bust off, 15-5 stretch. So anything can happen. I think the American League, in my eyes, is a little more intriguing in regards to the playoff race. The National League, the Reds, I like the moves they made. Ke'Bryan Hayes, I think that's a very underrated move. Adding a defensive third baseman of his pedigree. I mean, he's probably the best in the MLB. It gives, some protection to Ellie defensively, which is good. But, the National League, I mean, you got the Cubs, you got the Brewers, you got the Dodgers, you got the Padres, and then you got the Phillies and the Mets, who are all the 6 teams that,
Yeah, and that's I mean, that's the – oh, wow, it was Taj Bradley going back to Minnesota for Griffin Jacks.
He's been terrible. Bradley's been –
But, it does kind of – you make a really good point that this is a really strong National League this year. In most other seasons, the Marlins probably would be maybe like 3 or 4 games out of it at this point with their record, but being 7 games out, it does kind of leave you with a feeling of you could have gotten something without really damaging your opportunities for this year, because you're probably not making the postseason regardless. And I do see Anthony mentioning that the Marlins not seeing reports about the Marlins not trading Sandy has more to do with, what they can get for him in the offseason. I mean, that doesn't surprise me really. Because I do think regardless, like, you're going to have to move. You're going to have to move starters this offseason regardless, because you're going to have Braxton Garrett coming back. Robbie Snelling is ideally going to be ready by 2026. Thomas White is going to be knocking on the door probably come May of 26.
Still got Weathers and Myers.
Still got Weathers. You've still got, although I think Max Meyer is going to come back as a reliever. Said that a bunch of times. I think it's going to happen at this point.
Because there's depth. It's a good.
Yeah. So I think you kind of have to move Sandy, especially if the idea is, and I've seen it kicked around by guys like Barry Jackson that the Marlins may want to spend some money this offseason, dealing Sandy, freeing some of that money up, and then kind of reallocating it, maybe to your corner infield spots. Kyle Tucker. Well, you know what? Yeah, we already have 1 Stowers. Why not 2?
Yeah.
That would be really, really interesting. But yeah, I do think that there's probably some validity to something like that where, yeah, if you can get more for Sandy in the offseason, why not wait?
Yeah, and that was when when Sandy had his first good start about like 3 weeks back. It's just, sometimes just holding on to a guy is worth it. I mean, it's just, as a team like the Marlins, who is, kind of known for giving their stars out to our teams, and not showing a direction or a sense of wanting to win ever, holding on to these guys, like we talked about, with the youth and the potential, maybe it just shows a little bit of change in direction in the front office, and holding true to the value that they believe, whether it's now or later. Maybe they do move them when the winter meetings start. Maybe they do move them before it starts next season. But, it's not a bad thing. They had the leverage in this situation. He's under contract. He's got the team option later down the road. Same thing with Cabrera. You're in a perfect world, you're getting two very good starters, a 1 and 2 starter on a lot of teams, at way under value. So I don't think there's anything to ever complain about for that. So
yeah, no, I tend to agree when it comes to that, because it does feel like maybe you would have been trading them kind of just to trade them.
mm-hmm.
And I think as you add a guy like seeing Jacob Marcy getting added to this replacement, and I do think that that's going to be the natural kind of next step. I don't think that the team is really hiding it. I think it's kind of an open secret that he's going to be the guy that gets the opportunity in a post Sanchez world, and that's going to be really interesting because he's going to be adding to a young outfield that's got Stowers, that's got Heriberto Hernandez, who's come up and played really well, and maybe having an opportunity to platoon with Dane Meyer, who, kind of probably does need to settle back into more of a platoon role. And then I do think it'll be interesting. Like the Marlins are just they're set up in such an interesting way for this offseason, that it kind of feels like they do have a genuine logjam at some spots, that they're gonna have to clear out if they want to get where they're going. And I think the other thing to kind of keep in mind here is the Marlins, if you're just going like over their past, I'm looking it up right now, so just be patient with me here. This is a team that's gone 9-1-1 in their last 11 series, and I think if you go back to at their worst, they were 25-41. They're 50-53 now. That's 25-12 and 25 out of 37. Yeah, they're winning games at right now at a 678 clip. And if you were to take that number, we're at 103 games, 59 games left. That would give you a record of 40-19. And that would, so the Marlins, if they continue their torrid pace, they finish with about 90 wins, which I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but if they get to 90, maybe they make it. Who knows?
They always say all you gotta do is win every series, and they've won 5 in a row for the first time since 2017. So
you got to win every series, every single series.
Now I will say,
series loss.
I'm interested now with Gusto because he has been in the MLB and throughout the minors a starter and a reliever in some senses. So originally my take was that they added a guy like him meaning that somebody was getting moved out. But maybe he can see a role in the bullpen. Maybe he can see kind of that long relief role.
But
I don't know. It'll be
over who?
It's just a weird. It's just a weird.
Yeah, I mean,
I would have figured he would have. I would have figured if you're acquiring a guy like him who's MLB ready, you'd be kicking a guy to the curb. But
maybe, I mean, as crazy as it sounds, does Quantrill get waived? I mean, we know he hasn't been super happy with the whole getting pulled after 4 or 5 innings thing every night.
Every time, yeah.
Like every time, it's so funny to watch. He's so angry every single start. And to his credit, he's been super professional about it. It's just, you can see, like, you can just tell he's just lying in the post-game interviews, because as he's being pulled from the mound, he's just extremely upset. But yeah, I mean, is that what it is? Is it Cal Quantrill that gets waived? Because that's the only thing that kind of makes any sense to me, because I'm looking at the long relievers in the bullpen, and Viosa's been good. Tyler Phillips has been good. I wouldn't really want
and
to do anything there.
The thing is there's nothing you should do, because this last month, the reason they kept winning is the bullpen. I think their ERA was sub 2.5. Their FIP was low threes. And I mean they can throw, and they have guys in the pen down there in AAA too. So I remember seeing a report a few days ago that they were even getting interest for Foucher and Henriquez. So I mean, there's a lot of value in this bullpen, and it's something I wouldn't mess with. But like we're saying, who do you? Unless I don't know.
Yeah, I think the answer is probably, like, if you had to choose one, it's Quantrill. If you had to choose one. Although I do think that there's also the possibility that, listen, this is Sandy's first year coming off of Tommy John. This is Yuri's first year coming off of Tommy John. What are the odds we see a 6-man rotation for the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, little innings limit down the stretch. You got 6 strong arms. Good bullpen right now. That's not the worst. That's a very because especially if you see value in Sandy down the line, you can't get him. A second. That's not
right. And then Cabrera had the scare with the elbow soreness a few weeks ago, so there's definitely reasons as to why a 6-man rotation would make some sense for them down the stretch. Winker, I guess. Yeah, Winker just went down. Marcy coming up, 6-man rotation. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. That really does make a lot of sense to me. That is a good point. Shout out to my dad. That's him commenting there. Winker down, Marcy coming up, 6-man rotation. I do think a 6-man rotation makes sense for what they have here. I have Florida Weather Watch telling me that Starling Cabo really excites me as our future shortstop. I'm very glad to hear that Starling Cabo excites someone as the Marlins' future shortstop. And I'm biased, because I'll be the first one to admit, like, I don't really care for the profile of the guy that's like, hey, this guy's 18, he's got a really good glove, but can't really hit yet, but he has a pretty good eye, but he's 5'8", 150, so we'll see. And I'm like, we'll see.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with not being biased against that, because that's a lot of my high school teammates and even college teammates. So
yeah.
But another buzzer beater rolling in before you go. Royals acquired Mike Yastrzemski from the Giants. Just another random move that the Royals made. So
the Royals had such a weird deadline. That was weird. I mean, I guess they added in their minds, which, good for them. Before we leave, read the last comment. Is it possible that the line of thinking is that they know they have a ton of college bats coming up quickly through the system? the ones that we drafted this year, and they might be ready 2027, 2028. Yeah, I mean, I've had that thought where, you know, the Marlins did draft a lot of college bats that you would expect can move through the system pretty
21.
quickly.
All picks were college kids.
Yeah.
Every single one.
And so I do think that maybe there is something to, hey, we want to get some early results because, you know, you might want to add a third baseman in a Sandy deal or in an Edward deal, but if Ava Arquette if he starts at high A and he tears it up down the stretch, all of a sudden you're looking at him as a guy that, I mean, we saw Cam Smith get called up by the Astros like June this year, or even earlier than that, actually. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that something like that happens. So I think giving them that time to kind of evaluate the guys that they've just added to their system before maybe making a call on what they want to add makes some sense as well. But before we do leave, and we are about to wrap up here as we are getting over an hour. Firstly, I want to thank everybody for watching, the people that have been engaged and commenting. It has been much appreciated. It's been a very busy deadline. Austin, I'm going to put you on the spot here, and I'll put myself on the spot afterwards. Who are the three biggest winners of this deadline?
All right. I'm going to throw – I know they gave away a lot, but the Padres, they got better. They did what they needed to do. I think the moves, I mean, nobody wants to face that lineup now, not like they wanted to before. I'm going to go with the Mets, adding two high leverage, back of the end bullpen guys, adding a little more depth to that lineup. I wish they would add a little more left-handed power, but we'll see what they can get out of Mullins. And honestly, you have to say the Astros. I know a lot of their moves may be under the radar, but I think they had the biggest, wow, out of everything that happened today, and we didn't even discuss it that much. Bringing back Carlos Correa, a place where he's comfortable. He's already committed to play third base. They got, he's fully bought in. The Astros are fully bought in. They're back. They're at, perennial contention in the American League. And they're getting healthy. I think they're winning because they're getting healthy, too, at the right time. You're going to start seeing Jordan come back. You're going to start seeing the arms come back. So I'm going to go with the Padres, the Mets, and then I like the Astros.
So I'm gonna start with a team that made most of their moves before today, and my first big winner is actually going to be the Seattle Mariners. Acquiring the Cardinals corner, or the Arizona Cardinals. Jesus, I'm already thinking of football. The Diamondbacks corner infield in Geno Suarez and Josh Naylor is a massive boom for them. They also added a little bit to their bullpen as well. The Mets, as you mentioned, I think adding to their bullpen a ton. In terms of what they were able to do at this deadline, and then grabbing a Cedric Mullins on top of that makes them a really big winner. And I'm not going to go with the Padres because I think as nice as it is that AJ Preller is willing to go all in, you look at the long list of prospects that he has traded and what it's turned into.
Gutted the whole top 15.
And just given his track record of he's dealt Gore and Abrams and Wood and Bednar and King and all of these guys that have gone on to become all-stars. And the Padres really haven't had a lot of postseason success to show for it to this point. Even though it's fun, but it hasn't netted a lot of wins to this point. It just is what it is. But my third winner is going to be, in addition to the Mariners and the Mets, my third winner is going to be the Houston Astros. They weren't able to get the starter, but they do add Correa. They do add Sanchez. And they added as well to their bullpen. No, they added Urias as well.
I just know I think just Sanchez and and what you said, but Sanchez and Correa.
Yeah, Sanchez, Correa, Ramon Urias. Yeah, so I do think that the Astros got a lot better. It's going to be a really interesting deadline. Honorable mentions, you could talk about the Phillies. You could talk about the Yankees. The Yankees salvaged it by getting Camilo Doval kind of at the buzzer.
Little buzzer beater.
I don't know what that return even was, but I mean, getting Bednar and Doval and Black is a pretty good bullpen haul for them. The Rangers, getting Merrill Kelly. It was definitely an exciting deadline. Marlins only make one move, but I do think all in all it was a pretty good one move. And we are on to the home stretch of the season, and it'll be really interesting. Rays, you could make an argument actually are.
Yeah, I was just about to say I like the moves they made. So, but I guess this is a perfect time to just give a prediction for where the Marlins finish. Go, just throw it out there.
Boy, I'm gonna give credence to the way that they're playing. I'm gonna be as bold as to say that they finish over 500. I'll give them 83 wins, but it's not gonna be enough to make the playoffs.
I agree, especially with the teams in front of them. And I was just gonna throw a basic answer out there, but a sign of growth as they head into 2026, and I'm gonna roll with 500, 81 and 81.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out, but I will say down the stretch of the season, expect the younger guys to start fully not only taking control of this team. You lose your longest tenured position player for that matter in Sanchez, but it opens up more lanes for somebody like Harry Berto and the other guys, and it'll be interesting to see who gets caught up in September and here soon. So
absolutely. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun over this whirlwind deadline. Austin, thank you again for joining. You can follow him at AustinD1316 on X/Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter/X at Eric Wiedeke. You can also see me tomorrow morning talking about Dolphins training camp on the Scouting the Fins, which will be dropping tomorrow morning. About to record on that in an hour or two. Stay tuned for more content coming on the channel, as well as the Prize Pick streams that will be coming out here 2-3 times a week for baseball with me and probably Austin most of the time. So we will be catching you guys again. So we will see it next time.